Meghan Markle still struggles to carve out an independent royal identity. The Duchess of Sussex faces fierce pushback. Behind palace doors, Prince Philip reportedly handed Prince Harry a chilling warning before he walked down the aisle with Meghan Markle. A new wave of DNA-related allegations has completely ignited a royal firestorm. This sudden surge of explosive claims has reportedly triggered a furious, raw reaction from Prince Harry, dragging investigative biographer Tom Bower and high society insider Lady Colin Campbell directly into the eye of a storm that is now bursting far beyond private royal circles. What started as hushed behind-the-scenes speculation has rapidly mutated into a high-stakes standoff. Insiders describe the atmosphere as incredibly tense and deeply personal. Crucial questions are exploding across the media. What exactly was said? Who leaked it first? And why has the Sussex response been so immediate and intensely hostile? So what are these hidden claims, and why are they weaponizing the public discourse right now, at this precise moment, and in this specific way? Stay tuned as we pull back the curtain on the escalating war involving Harry, Tom Bower, and Lady Colin Campbell, the two formidable figures driving this entire global conversation. Before we dissect what has actually been exposed, we must look closer at the architects of these claims. Their credibility matters enormously when deciding how seriously these arguments deserve to be taken. Tom Bower did not begin his career chasing royal gossip. He built his fierce reputation over 4 decades as one of Britain's most ruthless, legally ironclad investigative biographers. Meghan is a master of controlling the narrative, someone who conquered the royal family but truly couldn't comprehend its inner workings. Bower's method has remained relentlessly consistent across every single book he has published. Bypass the public relations shields and go straight to the eyewitnesses who are actually in the room. He builds his cases from the inside out. He forces verified sourcing to carry the heavy narrative weight rather than letting empty assertions do the work that hard evidence should do. He doesn't write from the outside looking in at a distant target. He crafts his exposés from intense, private interviews with individuals who stood inches away from the action when history was made. That formidable background is precisely why his blockbuster 2026 book, Betrayal, carried such devastating weight when it hit bookshelves in March. Within mere days of its release, it bypassed every competitor to land straight at #1 on the Sunday Times bestseller list. That kind of massive commercial explosion doesn't happen through clever marketing alone. It happens when an author boldly exposes something a massive global audience has been waiting for someone credible, fearless, and legally accountable to address in black and white with their name printed on the cover. Lady Colin Campbell, conversely, operates in an entirely different orbit, yet she commands her own undeniable authority in this volatile space. She has spent years articulating detailed, highly sophisticated arguments across network television appearances and massive online platforms that regularly draw views in the millions. She is not an anonymous internet troll posting reckless conspiracy theories into the digital void without accountability. She proudly attaches her historic name, aristocratic title, and public reputation to her claims in open spaces, where she can be directly sued, cross-examined, and held fully responsible for every word uttered. When she delivers a public argument, she anchors herself to it in a manner that carries catastrophic personal and financial consequences if she is ever proven wrong. That intense layer of personal accountability sharply separates what she does from the ordinary background noise of cheap royal gossip filling comment sections and social media feeds. Between these two powerhouse figures, across a record-shattering bestseller and years of highly documented public commentary watched by millions, a chilling set of questions has been assembled. This goes well beyond the standard territory of palace intrigue or superficial drama. It strikes at something far more serious regarding legal documentation, timelines, and constitutional principles. Understanding the exact nature of these questions is the only way to realize why this global conversation absolutely refuses to die. What they are both exposing about Harry and Meghan's children is precisely what makes this saga unlike any other story in modern royal history. So what exactly are they alleging, and why did it trigger such a devastating reaction from the Sussex camp? Let's examine what Bauer's book actually unveiled. Nearly 400 pages is a massive amount of ground to cover, and Betrayal charges through a wide minefield of hidden territory. It meticulously documents aspects of Harry and Meghan's private lives and strategic decisions that had either never been leaked before or had existed only as fragmented rumors without the crucial surrounding context. There are shocking accounts of hostile confrontations deep inside palace walls. This includes an alleged explosive meeting at Kensington Palace where a delicate attempt to ease bitter family tensions apparently deteriorated into total chaos. Meghan reportedly ordered Prince William to remove his pointing finger from her face, while a stunned Prince Harry stood by silently without intervening. That specific showdown became one of the most fiercely debated passages in the entire book, with royal experts spending immense energy dissecting its accuracy and dark significance weeks after publication. The book also dives deep into the complex financial architecture of Archewell, the couple's multi-million-dollar nonprofit. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's Archewell Foundation, the highly publicized nonprofit founded by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, has raised serious questions about how money migrated through the operation and whether the internal governance accurately reflected what wealthy donors and the public were led to believe. Meghan's lucrative Netflix deal was explicitly targeted in the book. Bauer strongly suggested that the streaming platform's actual enthusiasm for her creative projects was considerably weaker than their massive public partnership implied. This raises uncomfortable questions about whether the high-profile arrangement ever truly represented what it appeared to be on the surface. Throughout his entire investigation, Bauer constructs a psychological portrait of Meghan as an individual who operates with calculated, extraordinary deliberateness. Meghan arrived on the royal scene, and it was immediately fascinating to watch how this would play out. To be perfectly honest, very few true friends of Meghan were willing to speak. His characterization reveals a person who never takes a single step without first calculating the long-term public effect of that action. Someone who manages personal relationships entirely in terms of their immediate usefulness, and who systematically removes people from her inner circle with surgical precision the second they no longer serve her grander interests. Her own father experienced this, the royal family endured it, and numerous professionals who worked closely with her have described identical versions of this exact pattern. That chilling portrait, which quickly became one of the most repeated takeaways from the entire biography, perfectly sets up the more serious questions Bauer unleashes later. Because if an individual operates with that level of intense calculation in every other dimension of their life, what does that mean for the choices they made around the most emotionally resonant parts of their public family story? Harry and Meghan's legal team struck back fiercely when the book launched. Multiple claims were rejected with absolute hostility. The word conspiracy was deployed by their spokespeople more than once. Critics of the Sussexes were dismissed as obsessed haters rather than legitimate journalists. But that furious response had an unexpected consequence. Instead of shutting down the conversation, it acted as fuel, drawing fresh attention to the book from mainstream audiences who hadn't been tracking the drama. Suddenly, a massive new audience was searching online to see exactly what had been claimed, trying to decipher why the royal reaction was so intensely panicked. And when that new audience started reading, the specific questions surrounding the children were the exact details that stopped them completely cold. Consider the persistent questions around Archie's birth. The public narrative surrounding Archie's arrival has always existed in a bizarre space where certain official details simply do not align cleanly. Myself and Meghan welcomed a baby boy early this morning, an incredibly healthy boy. Mother and baby are doing wonderfully well. Lady Colin Campbell was among the very first public figures with a massive media platform to translate these glaring observations into specific, undeniable terms. Here lies the core tension. After Archie was born, Harry and Meghan gave their landmark interview to CBS News. During that televised conversation, Meghan explicitly stated that she had never intended to give birth in a hospital environment at all. Her original plan, she confidently told the world, was a strict home birth. That statement was offered casually as background context for how their plans ultimately changed. However, it sat in direct, violent contradiction to the detailed Portland hospital story that had already been widely reported, documented, and accepted as the absolute official record of where Archie entered the world. When media commentators placed these two conflicting versions side by side, the gap between them was blindingly obvious. Either the home birth narrative was the truth and the Portland hospital story required major retraction, or the televised CBS interview contained a high-profile statement that did not reflect reality. Both official versions could not be completely true at the same time without This explosive detail spread like wildfire, was debated extensively by legal experts, and has never been publicly cleared up with a documented correction from the Sussex representatives. Finally, and perhaps most quietly significant of all, the prominent medical professional publicly associated with Lilibet's birth abruptly closed her entire medical practice at the exact end of that very same month. No public explanation was ever offered, no professional statement was issued. She simply ceased practicing medicine entirely and stepped completely out of the public eye. Lady C described this sudden exit as deeply notable. Bauer included it in his broader examination of the surrounding birth circumstances. Neither author went beyond what the verified facts showed, but both made it undeniably clear they viewed it as a major data point that deserved serious scrutiny rather than total silence. Each of these strange details carries an individual excuse. Together, however, they form a pattern that has proven much harder for the public to ignore. This brings us to what millions of people saw directly on their screens. Beyond paper documents and conflicting timelines, a separate thread of this intense conversation is built around immediate, visually accessible evidence. It is about what audiences watched on their TVs during both pregnancies in real time, and what those moving images appeared to reveal. Lady C utilized a highly controversial word when describing what she personally observed regarding Meghan's physical presentation during the Archie pregnancy. She called the performance performed. That single word landed like a bomb and divided global opinion down the middle. Supporters of the Sussexes slammed the characterization as cruel, misogynistic, and entirely baseless, the kind of toxic commentary no pregnant woman should ever have to endure regarding her changing body. Conversely, critics argued that Lady C was merely describing what was already heavily documented in widely available high-definition photographs and raw video footage, media that anyone with internet access could review for themselves. The core visual observation was that Meghan's pregnancy bump appeared to change size and shape drastically from one public appearance to the next, in ways that seemed to defy natural week-to-week biological progression. Specific royal appearances were cited repeatedly. The famous purple dress appearance and the striking red coat appearance became permanent reference points that commentators and digital communities dissected over and over, placing the footage in strict chronological order to analyze the baffling physical differences. Before pushing any further into this territory, the official counter-argument must be stated honestly and fully, because responsible, balanced coverage of this sensitive subject demands it. Human pregnancies vary drastically between different women. Some women carry babies in ways that appear visually completely different depending on the fabric of the outfit, their posture, the deceptive angle of a camera lens, and the specific hour of the day. Furthermore, some women remain incredibly physically active and flexible right up until the moment of labor in ways that appear astonishing to outside observers, yet are entirely consistent with a perfectly normal, healthy pregnancy. Making definitive, confident medical conclusions based entirely on selected paparazzi photographs is not the same as producing hard evidence. It is pure inference, and inference drawn from visual observation carries massive limitations that anyone engaging with this topic honestly must acknowledge. Lady C has explicitly acknowledged this visual limitation. Her counter-response, however, is that she did not rely solely on her own eyes. She has stated on the record that she extensively consulted with high-level medical professionals, veteran labor nurses, and women with multiple pregnancy experiences before ever speaking publicly on the matter. She described those private consultations as producing a unanimous verdict that the visual details captured on film raised legitimate biological questions that simple natural variation could not fully explain away. She was not presenting this as a casual internet opinion. She was presenting a calculated conclusion reached after deliberate professional consultation with her name and reputation attached. The single image that cut through the media noise most sharply was the animal shelter visit. At a point when Meghan was officially reported to be roughly 8 months pregnant, she visited a local dog shelter. She was photographed wearing high stiletto heels, crouched completely to the floor to interact with the dogs, and rose straight back up to a standing position without any visible physical assistance or loss of balance. Those images circulated globally and divided the public instantly. 8 months pregnant, in high heels, crouching effortlessly and rising without support. Critics argued this combination of movements would be physically impossible for the majority of women at that late stage of gestation. Meanwhile, supporters fired back that every female body handles pregnancy differently, and that drawing conspiratorial conclusions from a single photograph is inherently flawed and deeply harmful. Both arguments represent passionate responses to an image that cannot, by itself, prove anything conclusively. What Lady C added to this debate was the undeniable observation that not one single medical professional has ever publicly signed off on either royal birth, not for Archie and not for Lilibet. When placed against every single comparable royal birth in modern memory, Princess Diana's children, Princess Beatrice, Princess Eugenie, and Catherine's 3 children, where the hospitals were immediately confirmed, the delivering doctors were named on official placards, and the public record was kept completely accessible, that glaring absence stands out in a way that is incredibly difficult to explain away. And then there was the name, and what that name ultimately exposed. The icy silence. When Harry and Meghan officially announced they were naming their newborn daughter Lilibet Diana, the initial media response across both the UK and the United States was almost universally warm and celebratory, a grieving son honoring his grandmother the Queen and his late mother simultaneously. More specifically, her name, Lilibet, became the Queen's private childhood nickname from an early age. It was originally the endearing way she mispronounced Elizabeth. At a tense moment when his relationship with Buckingham Palace was already fractured, choosing the most deeply personal tribute imaginable seemed like a peace offering. The heartwarming story practically wrote itself, and global media outlets ran with it without looking any deeper. Lady C looked significantly deeper. Her inside account of the actual reaction within palace walls was the complete, terrifying opposite of the warm media headlines. She described cold fury, profound consternation, and a deep sense of personal violation among those closest to Her Majesty. Not quiet gratitude, not private warmth, but an institutional reaction that was the emotional inverse of what was being reported to the public. The reason, Lady C explained, was the intensely private nature of that specific name. Lilibet was absolutely not a public royal nickname. It was not a title the Queen used in any official state capacity or shared broadly with the world. It was intensely, fiercely personal, originating in her early childhood and used across her long life almost exclusively by her late husband, Prince Philip. It was the intimate name he called her throughout an intimate marriage spanning more than 70 decades. When Prince Philip passed away in April 2021, that name became something incredibly sacred, a final, private piece of a relationship that was gone forever, the Queen's most intimate remaining connection to the person who had known her the longest. Using that name for a commercial brand required something crucial, an explicit, respectful conversation about what it meant and who it belonged to. Whether that explicit permission conversation ever actually happened has been fiercely disputed in public. Then came the blatant commercial dimension. Reports quickly emerged of corporate trademark filings connected to the name Lilibet made around the exact period of the birth announcement. The cynical timing raised immediate questions that Lady C addressed directly. If the name was purely sentimental, private tribute chosen from a place of grief and love, the aggressive commercial activity running right alongside it sat incredibly uncomfortable with that emotional framing. Bower's psychological portrait of the Sussexes throughout Betrayal is of two individuals who consistently make major decisions, including deeply personal family ones, that align perfectly with long-term global commercial positioning. The name, in that strategic reading, was not separate from the business plan. It was an active part of it. The clear signal that cut through the noise most sharply, however, came not from a media commentator, but from the palace itself. When Prince William and Catherine released their official public congratulations on the birth, they noticeably referred to the baby explicitly as Lily, not Lilibet. Lily, in a highly formal public statement originating from the Prince and Princess of Wales, where every single word is heavily weighed, considered, and deliberate, and where absolutely nothing is an accident, the choice to use a shortened diminutive rather than the announced name was not casual editing. It was argued by Lady C to be a brilliantly measured signal, a quiet but unmistakable indication of exactly how the name weaponization had been received by the family. The palace was absolutely not going to validate the narrative framing Harry and Meghan had forced around it.